there is no room for reform. That is my opinion, at least. This is a mortal disease. I believe that the system was created for a certain era, but the era is over. It was designed for a bipolar era. The Soviet Union collapsed. The United States empire is on the way down, and it will be finished in the near future for the good of all mankind. And I hope that we will never have to face another empire. That is why I believe we need to refound the system, the international system. I don't know whether it should be called the United Nations again or not. Now, regarding the plan, we have some ideas. There are 4 proposals in order to elaborate a plan. But we in no way mean to elaborate the whole plan for the United Nations. We hope that the United Nations, we hope that the Secretary General and the Secretariat, we hope that our friend Kofi Annan could create a committee. This would be the first starting point. A committee of heads of state, of world leaders, in order to have a diagnosis, a revision, and a plan, something which I consider fundamental, and then later on be able to make proposals to the General Assembly. But if we have a dictatorship, if we still face the international dictatorship that exists, this proposal will not be feasible, because it would be enough to have one hand with a veto go up to stop the whole reform. So it would be a matter of a refoundation or a revolution, that new actors emerge and a new international system emerge in order to guarantee the respect for peace, of sovereignty of the peoples, of self-determination, and so that we can see the emergence of a new international system, what Simon Bolivar used to call the balance or equilibrium of the universe that cannot be imposed through war. There is no possibility of having a balance or an equilibrium through war. That is what gives way to imbalances, violence, bloodshed, and terror. We need to retake the path of brotherhood and peace. Those would be our modest contributions. Thank you.
Okay.
Sí, señor presidente.
Mr. President, I have 2 questions. In case Venezuela is elected to the Security Council this year, what would be the agenda that you would follow as a member state? What would be the real impact that it would have on the Security Council agenda, given the fact that it has a vote but not a veto? And my second question, very briefly, you have said that you do not recognize the new president of Mexico, and the government of Mexico had told you that they will not let you in if that is...
All right, we're going to break away from this. There you had Hugo Chavez, the Venezuelan president, addressing reporters just a few hours after having made his speech at the UN podium addressing the United Nations General Assembly, calling the U.S. president the devil and a global dictator. We will keep following this story and the reaction to that speech, although the White House has said it is not worthy of comment. And we heard similar wording also from the U.S. ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, a little earlier.
A UN speech turns into a fiery anti-American rant, and we mean fiery.
I think that the first people who should read this book are our brothers and sisters in the United States, because their threat is in their own house. The devil is right at home. The devil himself is right in the house. And the devil came here yesterday. Yesterday, the devil came here. Right here. Right here. And it smells of sulfur still today.
Insulting the President of the United States. That was Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez addressing the UN General Assembly, and he was only getting started. So let's get more from our senior UN correspondent, Richard Roth. Richard, was there any doubt at all that he was talking about President Bush?
No, I don't think so. You know, on the Manhattan's east side, I believe I once read that there are more psychiatrists per square inch than anywhere else in America, and President Chavez of Venezuela said a psychiatrist should be called in to analyze President Bush's remarks yesterday. Unprecedented, bitter remarks, rambling, lively, refreshing, depending on your viewpoint. The president of Venezuela inside the General Assembly hall with a major denunciation of President Bush, accusing him of being a liar, a terrorist, drawing applause at many times during the speech, and having this warning to the American leader.
Yo tengo la impresión, señor.
I have the feeling, dear world dictator, that you are going to live the rest of your days as a nightmare, because the rest of us are standing up. All those of us who are rising up against American imperialism, who are shouting for equality, for respect, for the sovereignty of nations. Yes, you can call us extremists, but we are rising up against the empire, against the model of domination.
The United States representative here at the United Nations, John Bolton, did not personally hear the remarks. The U.S. was represented by one diplomat at a very low level sitting, taking notes at the American table. But he was asked about Chavez's speech.
We're not going to address that sort of comic strip approach to international affairs. And as I say, the real issue here is he knows he can exercise freedom of speech on that podium, and as I say, he could exercise it in Central Park too, but given the same freedom to the people of Venezuela.
President Chavez is holding a press conference right now, which appears at the outset to be a little milder than his remarks inside the hall to the delegates. Carol.
Richard, what are the chances that Kofi Annan, the UN Secretary General, pulls him aside later and says, you know, that was really inappropriate?
The chances of that are zero. We did try to get Kofi Annan's comment. He did not want to comment on the speech. He did not hear it. He wasn't in the hall. But again, UN leaders are free to. The speech, he did not hear the Chavez speech this morning. And that thus no one's really going to be commenting from the UN on that speech, we believe.
All right, Richard Roth at the United Nations. A fascinating morning. So, if you were called the devil, wouldn't you want to respond in public? Let's go to the White House. President Bush wasn't in the room for those speeches, but let's see if Elaine Quijano has anything from the president. What did he say, Elaine? Anything at all?
Hello to you, Carol. Well, no surprise, really, the White House's reaction to Hugo Chavez's comments today. Deputy Press Secretary Dana Perino issuing a one-line statement saying simply, quote, "It is not worthy of comment." Pardon the noise, by the way. I think we're hearing Marine One landing on the South Lawn. President Bush returning from New York. Meantime, though, on Iran, one day after President Bush and the Iranian president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, avoided any face-to-face or chance encounter at the United Nations, Mr. Bush reiterated today to our Wolf Blitzer in an interview earlier today why he thought it would not be helpful to sit down with Iran's president.
He knows the options before him. I've made that very clear. Secondly, Wolf, in order for there to be effective diplomacy, you can't keep changing your word. At an important moment in these negotiations with the EU3 and Iran, we made it clear we would come to the table, but we would come to the table only if they verifiably suspended their enrichment program. And the reason that's important that they verifiably suspend is because we don't want them to have the technologies necessary to be able to build a nuclear weapon.
President Bush in an interview with our Wolf Blitzer earlier today. Now, President Bush says time is of the essence, and he says that he is concerned Iran is trying to stall and trying to buy time at a time when the United States is essentially looking to the Europeans in the negotiations with Iran. The president defended the U.S.'s policy, saying it was, quote, smart to push this issue along. Carol?
All right, Elaine Quijano live at the White House.